we do live in an age, referring back to the young men that I was talking to at a boarding school the other day, where people don't feel that they can put their perspective and they don't feel that they can challenge the orthodoxy either. Yet progress, it seems to me, in our culture, when it was operating on truly liberal principles, was made by people feeling that they could put their ideas on the table. The ideas would be discussed rather than themselves becoming the issue. And people could ask questions. But it seems now they're not allowed to ask questions. You must not question the reigning orthodoxy, which is politically constipating, and I would have thought, well, I'm convinced, is extremely dangerous. Not least of all because you have large parts of the community who feel simply left out and not represented. I actually think that's precisely what produced Brexit and what produced Donald Trump and that whole upheaval. But progressivism seems blind to it and charges on regardlessly, insulting those and marginalising those who dare to disagree in a way that is very counterproductive to a properly operating, harmonious and democratic society.
Absolutely. Well, the problem is it's not progressive, it's regressive. And the reason why that they don't want to, one's not allowed to express oneself is because their arguments are very flimsy. And also they're often deeply, deeply hypocritical as well. And I suppose we're in a period of capitalism and all Western civilization more broadly, where we are navel gazing. And we're encouraged to brutally dismantle the past from our own highly exalted positions of it's almost like we're at the apotheosis of history, that nothing will ever improve from this point forward. So it's our position to look back, and particularly in England, where the conversation about colonial guilt is coming in to the point where Churchill is being taught to students as a sort of fascist, racist traitor. And you can see it with people coming out of university. And it's very sad because, this man really stood alone in many ways against the onslaught of fascism through Europe. But now you'll find students sitting there saying, well, the Bengal famine, Bengal massacre. And you'll go, yeah, of course, but we have to be able to hold more than one reason in our head and one feeling in our head about those that have led us before, without looking at them with great disdain, which is so sad because Britain, however small it is, has an important role to play in the world and always finds its role to play in the world. But at the moment, those that would wish us ill are saying that we're the worst thing that ever happened, and the whole world was beautiful and was sunny and shiny until colonialism, and then evil began. And it's a modern white guilt revisionist version of history, which isn't true, and B is extremely divisive. And if you raise that with somebody in conversation, they will either call you a racist, as I'm frequently called, or they will say that you're denying the tragedies that have come before to other people, and you're denied the conversation because it's just a univariant conversation, always based around race, never based around any other thing like structural inequality or anything like that. I find it very boring actually talking to some of them.
I gather that word boring got you into quite a bit of trouble.
Yes. Yes, it did get me into trouble on question time. I think it is boring to say. I think it's very sad to take an immutable characteristic and say that defines the person, because it lacks nuance in the story. In the same way I was always taught as a child, as one of those sort of things you're taught as a child, which is kings can be unhappy and poor people can be happy. It's not, you're not happy based solely around where you fit in the social hierarchy. And it allows you as a child to explore values and the idea that not everything's down to money or the color of your skin or how you were born, that you have opportunities and you are responsible for yourself, and your future lies to a great extent in your own hands as far as what you can achieve practically. And we're just removing that now and saying, and it's very patronizing. It's very rude. A lot of the people that I work with who are working with me on Reclaim are by no deliberate action people that aren't white-skinned. And I think it's particularly hurtful for some of them to be spoken to in a way as where they need to be protected by us white saviors. And our white guilt is salved by helping them out. But they're sat there going like this: well, I'm smarter than you are. I have as much opportunity in life as you can. And I really feel that drawing attention to skin color in that way, when we are such a progressive society, to then come and go, it's because you're a white privileged male, or because this woman of color is, it's boring. I'm sorry to say. It's like there are many more interesting conversations to be had. Let's talk about the mutability of characteristics and the mutability of thinking and the excitement of what rational and reasoned debate can do. Let's not start at an unlevel playing field where the majority of the population are the losers.
Yeah, I thought that Matthew Parris had a very interesting insight. He's for those who are not familiar with him, a very prominent commentator in Great Britain. And when the first round of Tear the Statues Down movement emerged in Britain, and there was a desire to remove Cecil Rhodes's statue in Oxford, he made the point it would be much wiser, surely, to leave it there and put a statue of the King of the Zulus on the other side of the street and tell both stories, and recognise that Rhodes got some things right, perhaps he got some things wrong, and then there's a whole story about the true nature of humanity to be told about the King of the Zulus as well. And that's the great problem when we teach somehow or other that all evil is the result of white supremacists, and that even Winston Churchill, who stood alone against fascism. I'm a free man here in Australia today, as I see it, as a historian, by the way, because Churchill stood when no one else would. That's pretty profound. But to not teach history in a balanced way is to overlook something that I think is very significant, the story of extremism in the 20th century and how disastrous that was. And you think communism claimed probably 100 million people one way or another, and Nazi trying to erase history in the Cultural Revolution. He wanted all old thinking washed out of the system so that people could be completely shaped by the Communist Party that was in charge of China. It turned into something that was utterly reprehensible, brutal beyond belief, murderous, and that's washed out of history because it's all our fault.
It's so tragic. I have a real bugbear about certainly about the statues, because I don't feel it's our responsibility. I feel it's our responsibility to be custodians of history. It doesn't belong to us. I don't totally agree with Matthew Parris on putting up a statue of the Zulu, but I do feel that you don't take a statue down. You put something up next to the statue so a parent can take their child to see the statue and they can get a more broader sense of who that person was. But we do not have a right to tear these things down, because it is exactly what's happening. It's the erasing of history, and this desire to create equity. And the reason why it fails so badly is the need for bureaucracy. The amount of bureaucracy it would require to make everybody have the same equality of outcome is murderous in itself. So we end up with, I think people want to give it a go, though. In the UK, there was a very concerted effort last week to say that Lord Nelson's hero status was going to be revoked. And thank goodness for people like the Nelson Society, who really looked into this letter that associates him apparently with a slave owner in the Caribbean. And thank goodness for them. They produced all of the evidence and they released it out. But we shouldn't really be having a conversation when a man lost his eye and his arm trying to fight for our country. And of course there were different times, but again it boils down to this: we've reached the woke religion has superseded all other things and can therefore judge history in whichever way it chooses to, whereas I would say absolutely not. We keep these statues up, and you wouldn't find people from our side of the argument defacing or removing Karl Marx's grave from Highgate Cemetery. We need it needs to be a conversation and a democratic one, not a riot and a tearing down of statues. We're more developed than that.
Thank you for watching this episode. We appreciate your support. If you value vital conversations like this one, be sure to subscribe to the channel there and also click the notification bell to stay up to date with new releases.